Hello, participants in the process of joining. We are starting the meeting in 2-3 minutes, within 2 and 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Hello, Pal ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you. Oh, a very warm welcome to all of you, selected ladies and gentlemen, to this global audience platform of Ranjit Guru International Series of webinar. Today, one of important session for this event we celebrate as it is indeed a high tea conversation between the two legends. One is fantastic uh, and very fascinating Indian thinkers, Sri Charudutta Panigrahi ji, eminent author and futurist, and another is Mr. Debasish Pattnaik as the entrepreneur and president of the Thai Odisha now. I invite Dr. Payal Agarwal to introduce our guest speakers to this global audience platform. Over to Dr. Payal.
My warm greetings to one and all. Thanks, Rudra sir, for giving me the pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest for today's lecture come online tea discussion forum. Our first guest speaker is a widely known dynamic Indian thinker, Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi. He is a public policy expert and columnist based in Gurgaon. born in Ganjam, Odisha, also known as Ganjam Gaurav, is quite far ahead of his times. He is a futurist, an author, poet, public policy expert, and whatnot. In fact, he wears multiple hats and works globally. He is best known for his work in public resources management and leadership. He has been writing on various subjects ranging from soft skills to economic growth to policies for progress. His thinking is not self-limiting because he puts his thinking into practice. He has set up think tank in different states of India and outside India as well. His voice has always been backed by evidence and data rather than rhetorics. According to him, India is a land of unlimited capabilities. To explore that, youth should develop thinking with a direction. And with this vision and mission, he has recommended to initiate for a Ministry of Thinking to make systematic interventions in promoting thinking. Sir, it is really our proud privilege to welcome you for today's lecture.
Thank
Our
you.
next our next guest speaker is Srijukta Debasish Pattnaik. He is a writer and president of TIE, Odisha chapters. Now, TIE is the Indus entrepreneur, which endeavors to cultivate and nurture the ecosystem of Odisha's entrepreneurship. The Indus entrepreneur has been providing mentoring, networking, education, and funding to the young and budding entrepreneur of Odisha. Mr. Pattnaik is of the opinion that the time has come for TIE to look beyond Bhubaneswar and reach out to the interiors of the state, which will certainly help to foster entrepreneurship among the youths of Odisha. Besides that, he is an excellent writer and continuously writing for making Odisha as a tourist hub. According to him, Odisha has more secrets which the tourist has yet to explore. He is the director in the only amusement park in Bhubaneswar BDA City Center. He is also a business leader, and to promote Odia cuisine, he has started a small experiment which has later on turned a huge success. He is the director of the Crown Hotel and founder of a chain of Dalma restaurant. According to him, tourism has the potency which can serve as the driving force of India's economy. Thank you, sir, for taking out your valuable time and connecting with us. Actually, here I would like to make an important announcement and a humble request to our esteemed speaker to conclude their talk within 20 minutes each, so that an online tea discussion of half an hour can be conducted between the speaker themselves, and then we can have half an hour open discussion forum from our participants. Now I would like to stop here and would like to invite Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi to initiate his talk. Over to Mr. Panigrahi.
Thank you. Thank you, Payal. And thank you for setting the context. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Dr. Bikram Jana, Srijukta Debasish Pattnaik. Thank you all for being here with us on a Saturday afternoon. And the topic is also a topic which is requiring all our attention at this point in time. There are a couple of things that I would like to say before I start sharing my thoughts with you. One, there is a saying, I'll start my talk with that saying. There's a saying, it says, it goes like this: progress lies not in enhancing what is, rather advancing towards what will be. So when we talk about thinking, when we talk about anything that has to come from within, there is always a resistance. There's always a stone walling. So it is not that we don't have anything, that's why we are thinking, or it is not that we always have to go back to the past and talk about the past only, dwell in the past to give us the comfort that we need not think. So thinking is probably the most crucial element if we are born as a Homo sapien. I would like to start my thought sharing with these lines. Having said that, a few things I would observe and I would request all of us to observe here in the next 1 hour or 1.5 hours that we are all together is not to stonewall ourselves from new thoughts. So when someone is saying something, we need to give full attention because listening is a very important part of communication. Now, when we are talking about thinking in Odisha, that's the topic, why thinking is necessary for Odisha. I would like to remind all of us that we often face this in our lives, in our day-to-day lives. When we say something, people don't listen. That's the beginning of thinking, and that's the moot point. Why we don't listen to somebody else who's speaking could be because we understand or we believe that we know better, or we have this notion that there cannot be anything extra that can be told to me because I'm full. Now, there is a Zen story where somebody visits a monk and asks him for his advice, and the monk starts pouring tea on his cup till it overflows. So this guy is completely perplexed and surprised. He's asking, why are you doing this? The monk says, I'm doing this because you think it is already overflowing. So there is nothing for me to add on. So there is no space for my thoughts to go into you as an advice. And we do the same things to our next generation, to our children, to our youth. And this topic, this discussion would concentrate more on youth because the average age of India today is 29 years, and average age of Odisha is hovering around the same. It's around 30 years. Now, when we are talking about the average age of a nation or a state as 29 or 30, what does this mean? This means that there is a long road ahead for each one of us who's now living in Odisha. Let me now concentrate on Odisha. Now, when we talk about a long road ahead, we talk about either a career, so which typically means a job, or a self-employment, where he or she creates jobs. Now, when we are saying that no, thinking is a perspective or is a space which needs attention, we are thinking about incubation in our day-to-day lives. Incubation doesn't mean that there has to be only a government scheme or a public scheme or an incubation center. Each home has to be an incubation center. Each mind has to be an incubation center. We as parents or we as students or we as children, every one of us have to have that incubation mindset. That's the first thing that's required if you are thinking of thinking as an important thing to think, and that is required. And why that is required is because this is directly linked with your GDP growth or your gross happiness index. Whichever index you take as human development indices or index, this is the core. The core is thinking. Now, I'll give you one example of how different times have told us about different ways of approaching our work or our thinking. When we were in colleges in, say, 80s, I'm talking about my days, my college days in 80s, we had a trend that after graduation or even before graduation, so I was probably the last batch of plus two. So in ISC, you choose either to be an engineer or medico, or you go for your graduation and then PG, sit for civil services. So there were 3 or 4 or 5 maximum opportunities. And now the opportunities are multiples of that. Why did this happen? This happened because post 91, when we thought that we could do much more than what we are doing by inviting fresh ideas, by inviting fresh capital, by inviting global ideas, we opened up. Similarly, by inviting fresh ideas, by inviting global thoughts, if we could open up our minds, our thinking will also change. So our thinking affects our minds directly. Our minds affect our thinking directly. But Why are we talking about all this today now is that it is the responsibility of the civil society to ensure that below 34 population in Odisha, which is about 2 crores, slightly less than 2 crores out of 4.7 odd uh, crore population, it is our responsibility to lead them to a path where they would spend time in thinking. Today, they spend more time in Netflix than thinking. Today, they spend more time in OTT, all these over the top platforms, than spending time with their own friends also. So they are now getting more and more and more reclusive inwards, and which is not a good thing for a mind to be nurtured. And why are we talking about this? Because there could be two aspects of thinking. One is the personal aspect. Me as a person, how much time do I think, and what do I think? How is the ecosystem? Am I thinking positive or negative? Because if I, in the name of thinking, always spend time thinking negative things, then that also leads to a lot of negativity. So who's there to handhold me? Who's there to mentor me? That's one aspect. The other aspect is institutional. What am I learning from my childhood days? What am I learning from my early childhood education? How am I learning? Now, this entire discussion will not uh, rest in pointing fingers at the establishment or criticizing someone or trying to find faults. But what we will try to do in this discussion is to clearly etch out a role for all of us. এই ডিসকସନ ପରେ ଆମ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର କର୍ତ୍ତବ୍ୟ କଣ ରହିବ ସେଇଟା more important than to say ଯେ ସରକାର ଏଟା କଲେନି କି ସରକାର ଏଟା କଲେ କି ଏଟା ଭଲ ହେଲାନି କି ଏଟା ଭଲ ହବ। କାହିଁକି? As I am speaking, and I can speak for myself here, I think that this role of civil society in thinking or boosting thinking or promoting thinking, particularly in Odisha, is probably at its lowest. What is this civil society we are talking about? You and I. This civil society will not come from somewhere else. We are not tourists in Odisha. We have to take care of our own lives. ଆପଣ ଯଦି କିଏ ଗଲା 3 ମାସ 4 ମାସ ଏବେ ତ କୋଭିଡ ପାଇଁ ସ୍କୁଲ ବନ୍ଦ ଅଛି କେବେ ବି ଯାଇଥିବେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ସ୍କୁଲ କୁ ଆପଣ ସ୍କୁଲର ସରକାରୀ ସ୍କୁଲର ମୁଁ ସରକାରୀ ସ୍କୁଲ ଜାଣିକି କହୁଛି ସରକାରୀ ସ୍କୁଲର ଯୋଉ ଅବସ୍ଥା ଯୋଉ ଇନଫ୍ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ଆଉ ଯୋଉ ଟିଚିଂ ଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡାର୍ଡସ୍ ତାକୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ପିଲାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଟାର୍ଗେଟେଡ ନ କରିବା ପିଲାମାନେ କେବେ ବି ଥିଙ୍କିଂ ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷଟା କରିବେନି ଏବେ କରୁ ବି ନାହାନ୍ତି। So we were doing a survey where we found out a national survey ଟା ଆମର ଗୋଟେ in-house survey ଆମେ କରୁଥିଲୁ about 8-9 states ରେ I'm calling it national because I'm extrapolation କରିଥିଲୁ ଅନ୍ୟ ଜାଗାରୁ where we found out that about 15 to 20%, less than 20% people, youth, are doing what is their calling. ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉଟା passion ସେଟା ସେମାନେ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। Others are only following. And why are they following? Because ଯଦି ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ app କରିବେ ତାହେଲେ ମୁଁ ବି ଗୋଟେ app କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଯଦି ମୋର senior ଗୋଟେ app କରିଛି ମୋ କଲେଜର ମୁଁ ବି ସେଟା କରିବି। And there is a huge gap because nobody is trying to spend time with me to tell me what is wrong or right in my thinking also. So these are young minds and they need coaching, they need mentoring. ଆମ ବେଳେ ଯୋଉଟା ନଥିଲା ଆମେ ତ ସେଟା next generation କୁ ଦେଇପାରିବା। ଆମ ବେଳେ କ୍ୟାମ୍ପସରେ ପିଲାମାନେ were involved in public work. କ୍ୟାମ୍ପସରେ we had groups of students who were worried ଯଦି ତାଙ୍କ ସାହିରେ ଯଦି ନାଳରେ ପାଣି ଆସୁନି କି ତାଙ୍କ ସାହିରେ ବଡିରେ ପାଣି ଭର୍ତ୍ତି ହେଇଯାଉଛି ତାହେଲେ they were getting worried and they were actually in their own small little way ସେତେବେଳେ ତ ଏତେ emphasis ନଥିଲା independent ହବା social media ନଥିଲା କି ଯିଏ ନାହିଁ ସିଏ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଲେଖିଦବ କି ଗୋଟେ group କରିଦବ କି to express one's angst ସେତେବେଳେ ଯାହା ଆମେ କରିପାରୁଥିଲୁ ଛୋଟ ଆକାରରେ ଆମେ କରୁଥିଲୁ ସେତେବେଳେ but over a period of time our youth have distanced themselves from us. ସେମାନେ କାହିଁକି ଦୂରେଇ ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି? ସେମାନେ ଦୂରେଇ ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି ଆମ ପାଇଁ, and I am taking the full blame for that. I, as a part of the civil society, I don't spend time with the demographic dividend that we are talking about. ଆମେ demographic dividend ଟାକୁ ଗୋଟେ jargon କରିଦେଇଛୁ। ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ଏଇ talk ରେ the second point that I want to tell you is that we will not at all use jargons. ଆମେ ଯେତେ simplify କରି କଥା ହବୁ ତାହେଲେ it will be a high tea discussion, otherwise it will be a stiff boardroom discussion. We want to have a free flowing discussion with all of us here. We don't want to have a stiff discussion, a discussion where I will hide things and tell you, or you will hide things and tell me. No, time has come to open up our discussions, our dialogues. Enough is enough. The third thing that I want to tell you is, when we started, I'll give an example. What a story କହିବି ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ 1999 2000 ବେଳକୁ we set up centers in different state district ରେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଆମେ ICT center କଲୁ। ICT ହେଲା information and communication technologies। ICT centers କଲୁ କଣ ପାଇଁ? with the hope that boys and girls of that particular village will come together and sit down and talk something constructive। ତାଙ୍କର ବସିବା ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗା ନାହିଁ କୋଠି, ତାଙ୍କର ଏକାଠି ବସିବା ପାଇଁ ଜାଗା ନାହିଁ କୋଠି। ବଡ ମାନେ ଭାଗବତ ଟୁଙ୍ଗିକୁ ଯିବେ କି ବଡ ମାନେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗାକୁ ଯିବେ, youth club। now that youth club has been completely abused। youth club କଣ ପାଇଁ ୟୁଜ ହଉଛି ସେଟା ଆପଣ ବି ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି, ମୁଁ ବି ଜାଣିଛି। ତେଣୁ youth club ମୁଁ କହୁନି, ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ICT center କଲୁ। କଣ ICT center? ସେଥିରେ we will put a few computers, ଗୋଟେ ଧରନ୍ତୁ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ସ କି ଫଟୋକପିୟର ମେସିନ, ସେତେବେଳେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଫଟୋକପିୟର ଚାଲିଥିଲା, ଆଜିକାଲି ସେଟା ରିଡଣ୍ଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲାଣି। and ଏ ଯୋଉ ଚାର୍ଜ କରିବେ ମୋବାଇଲ ଫୋନ, ଏ ସେଣ୍ଟର କଣ ପାଇଁ କରିଥିଲୁ? with the help of our alumni, ତାଙ୍କଠୁ ଆମେ ଫଣ୍ଡ ରେଜିଂ କରିକି we set up these ICT centers for youth। ICT centers for youth ଯେତେବେଳେ ହେଲା, and I went to someone in the government ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ, ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ମତେ ପଚାରିଲେ କଣ କମ୍ପ୍ୟୁଟର ଦେଇଦେଲେ ପିଲାମାନେ ସବୁ ଠିକ ହେଇଯିବ, ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ପେଟ ଭର୍ତ୍ତି ହେଇଯିବ? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that computer ଦେଇଦେଲେ ହେଇଯିବ ବୋଲି ସେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ଭାବିଥିଲେ, because that was new। so how do we look ahead, not look now or look to the past, look ahead? So how do we look ahead if we don't open up our minds and if we don't share things? So ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ICT centers ହେଲା, they were actually sharing centers। ଧରନ୍ତୁ ସେଠି magazines ରହିବ କି newspaper ରହିବ କି ବହି ରହିବ, and we discuss about literature, we discuss about other things of importance or interest for youth। କୋଉଠି ଚାକିରି ବାହାରିଲା, what is the new trend, pharma sector କେମିତି କରୁଛି, ଏବେ pharmaceutical sectors ବେଶୀ ଖୋଜୁଛନ୍ତି ପିଲା, ସେମାନେ ଖୋଜୁଛନ୍ତି BA pharma, ତାହେଲେ BSc pharma, ତାହେଲେ BSc pharma ର ବହୁତ ଚାହିଦା ଅଛି, ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ କୋଉଠି କୋଉଠି BSc pharma institution ଅଛି, ମୁଁ ସେଠିକୁ apply କରିବି। so ଏଇ ଯୋଉ sharing of information କୋଉଠି ଅଛି, ସେଟା କୋଉଠି ହଉଛି ସେଟା? so over a period of time ଆମର impact ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲୁ that a lot of children, I'm calling them children, but now they're gainfully employed and self-employed, lot of them benefited from this। so this doesn't mean that ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ବହୁତ ବଡ ଗୋଟେ ସେଣ୍ଟରଟେ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ 5 ବର୍ଷ ଯୋଜନା। ସେ ସେଣ୍ଟର ହେଲା ପରେ ପିଲା ଆସିବେ, ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ଡାକିବାଟା ଗୋଟେ ଯୋଜନା, ପିଲା ଆସି ବସିବେ, ପିଲାଙ୍କର ବସିବା ପରେ ସେମାନେ କେମିତି ଶୃଙ୍ଖଳିତ ଭାବରେ ବସିବେ, ଡିସିପ୍ଲିନ କେମିତି ମେଣ୍ଟେନ ହେବ, ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଯୋଜନା। ଆଜ୍ଞା ଯୋଜନା କରି 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 73 ବର୍ଷ ହେଇଗଲା, ତ କେତେ ଆଉ ଯୋଜନା କରିବା? so now is the time to act। so second thing, institution ରେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ କହିବି, ଗୋଟେ ICT center କହିଲି, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା institution ରେ, if you remember ଆଗରୁ ଆମର ଲାଇବ୍ରେରୀ ଥିଲା, ଇଭେନ ଛୋଟ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟ ଲାଇବ୍ରେରୀ, ସବୁ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟରେ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟ ଲାଇବ୍ରେରୀ ଥିଲା। କଣ ପାଇଁ ଥିଲା? ସେଠି ସମସ୍ତେ ଯାଉଥିଲେ, ସକାଳେ ଥରେ ଯାଉଥିଲେ କି ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟାବେଳେ ଯାଉଥିଲେ, ଯାହାର ଯେମିତି ସୁବିଧା ଦେଖିକି ଯାଉଥିଲେ, ଏବଂ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟ ଲାଇବ୍ରେରୀରେ ବହି ପେପର ସବୁ ମିଳୁଥିଲା, ରହୁଥିଲା, ଏବଂ ଚୁପଚାପ ସମସ୍ତେ ବସୁଥିଲେ, ଏକାଠି ବସୁଥିଲେ। the whole idea was to instill a sense of discipline and create an intellectual atmosphere। now why it was there? It was there because Odisha, believe me, is probably, I'm not saying that other states are not, but I'm talking about my own state. Odisha is probably the only state which has the capability of combining hard skills, soft skills, life skills, hard skills. So we have that in us. Our nature, our culture, our heritage is so rich that ଆମେ ଯେମିତି futuristic ହେଇପାରିବା, ଅନ୍ୟମାନଙ୍କୁ ଟିକେ ସମୟ ଲାଗିବ futuristic ହବା ପାଇଁ। ଆଉ କାହିଁକି ସେଟା ମୁଁ କହୁଛି, because ଆମେ ସବୁବେଳେ, we have never been identified as belonging to one particular belief or faith or one particular way of life. ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ସବୁବେଳେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ମିଶି ଯାଇପାରୁ। Don't take it as a shortcoming, don't take it as a weakness. ଆମେ ମିଶି ଯାଇପାରୁ, ସେଟା ଆମର strength। ଆଉ ସେଇଟାକୁ ନେଇକି ହିଁ ଆମକୁ ୟୁଥ୍ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ ଟାକୁ ଆମକୁ ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମକୁ ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ବିକଜ we are very democratic and we are very open। ତ ଆମ ୟୁଥ୍ ଯେତେବେଳେ ରେଡି ହଉଛନ୍ତି for employment, self employment, and when they are thinking, even from a teenage, when they are thinking, we have to get them exposed to everything that happens across the world, and now it is no more difficult, it is probably the easiest thing to do। एंड आमे बेले बेले कौन पे आमे बहुत इरिटेटेड हे जाऊ कि बहुत हाइपर हे जाऊ दैट आम नुआ जनरेशन किछि करूनांती, खाली व्हाट्सएप, खाली फेसबुक। मते कहंतु आपण को टाइम रे जदी व्हाट्सएप और फेसबुक थांता, आपण कोन करथांते? मु तो शेयर करथांते एबे जहा पिला मन करछन, मु एथि पे शेयर करथांते काना मो पकरा किछि नाही करिवा पे। आपणकर सिटी रे कि आपणकर टाउन रे आपण जोठी भी अछंती, केतरा पार्क अछि, केतरा फुटबॉल टीम अछि, केतरा क्रिकेट टीम अछि, केत जण खेलुचंती, सेही छोटो स्कूल रे सेही ईयर आमे जेतिकी खेलुतले एबे बरम सेटा आउरी रिड्यूस हे गला। सो एवरीथिंग इज कनेक्टेड। नाउ वी आर नॉट वरीड अबाउट आवर सिटी डिजाइन और आवर विलेज डिजाइन और आवर हाउस डिजाइन और आम गली घर। आमे सेठी किछि जागा करिवनी पिलांक पय, किंतु पिला माने हमर समस्त चैंपियन होबाक पड़िवो। से टेनिस रे भी भलो हेतिवो, क्रिकेट रे भलो हेतिवो, भलो नाचुथुवो, भलो गीत गाउथुवो। Aren't we expecting too much of our children? Is it fair? It's not fair. I don't think it's fair. Are we spending time with them to make them think? Where is that essence of our lives? Thinking. So there is a very startling figure. I'll tell you. India re less than 1% GDP is spent on R&D. Korea, South Korea, how Israel is probably one of the highest in the world, 4.16. Vietnam, South Korea re more than 2-3% semane kharcha korchonti on R&D. What does this mean? This means they have innovations. What does that mean? That means that innovation hele we have enough scope to engage our children, engage our youth in innovating, in getting involved in innovations. पुणे, गुरगांव रे, बेंगलोर रे जो पिला माने हमर काम करूचंती, हैव यू एवर थॉट केबे आपण पचारिचंती तू करूचु कोन? मु आईटी कंपनी रे अछि, आईटी कंपनी रे करूचु कोन? केते वैल्यू ऐड करूचु? केना एमाने समस्त एमानकर स्पार्क अछि। They are brilliant children. They are much better than our generation, if I may say so. I always think that. That's my firm belief. But are we ever spending time with them? करूचु कोन? आपण केमती एक्सपेक्ट करिवे जे पिलाटा संगे संग फेरी आसीबो भुवनेश्वर को, सी सेटल कर जीवो भुवनेश्वर रे, आ भुवनेश्वर गोटे किछि निजरो स्टार्ट कर दबो। We will ask Sri Pattnaik today to tell us his story of how he started one of the most original ideas Odisha has ever seen, and what were his struggle or his journey. So how do you expect everything to happen overnight? It will not happen overnight. There is a law of harvest. Law of harvest says that obviously you reap more than you sow. So it says when you sow an act, mane you do something, you sow an act, then what happens? You reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you reap a character. If you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Ame jette we can go on talking about economic growth, we can go on talking about GDP growth, we can go on talking about mining industry, service industry, agriculture. Koribo kiye? All this has to be done by human beings. And they are the future of all of us. Are we taking care of them? Are they thinking? And that is why I was, and I'm still advocating for a ministry of thinking. All this will happen. Human resources development will happen. How will it happen if you don't think? Will some robo come and do our human resources development? No. ଆମକୁ ତ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ଆମ ଘରେ ତ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ଆମ siblings, ଆମ ପିଲା, ଆମକୁ ତ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ. So how will we do that? How much time do they spend in thinking and thinking positive? I'll just end with two things. One, research development in India has to look up. There is enough scope for Odisha to do in research and development because of our institutions. We have life sciences, we have now medicine sciences now getting a lot of scope. We have so many colleges in Bhubaneswar, Odisha. We have so many institutions coming up. We have all of this being done, infrastructure development being done to develop thinking, to develop application of thinking. But we have to now understand who's going to use this. Now, if our children are not going to use this, somebody else will come and use this. Now, if somebody else comes and use this, then we have a problem. But we don't try to promote our children or try to develop, nurture our own talent, our state or talent to access these infrastructure. So let us now look at doing that. Second, we have so many research institutes and so many institutes in art, culture, बहुत institute अछि. ଆପଣ କେବେ ଭାବିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଏଇ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଟ ଗୁଡା ଯୋଉଗୁଡା ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ପେୟର ପଇସାରେ ଏବଂ ସରକାରଙ୍କର ସାହାଯ୍ୟରେ ଏ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଟ ଚାଲିଛି, ୟାର performance ଟା କେମିତି ହଉଛି? Have you ever thought that we should now, a time has come when we should ask these institutions, what is your impact? ଆପଣ ଗଲା 10 ବର୍ଷରେ କଣ କରିଛନ୍ତି? ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ give us a report card. Can we look at a report card? Can we look at a civil society involvement in helping our institutions come up with a report card? Yeah, ame eya karichu. This is, we have spent 100 rupees, we have spent 200 hours of 300 experts in achieving this. Achi koti apan pakhre ke eta can we find out a return on effectiveness of these institutions? I think it is now time for us to think about that, think on those lines. Ame jetebale I am from a business management school, but ame jetebale 80s रे हमको कुहा होतला जे तुमे एग्रेसिव हो, सबु ग्रुप डिस्कशन रे माडी बसी की कहबो, काहा को चांस दवनी कहया पय, मु जेते एग्रेसिव हेबी मु सेते बढिया चाकरी पाई, हां सेते बडा मल्टीनेशनल को जीवी, सेते बडा मोर प्रमोशन हबो, काइना I have to tell you, I have to show my killer instinct. It is now a different turn. You don't have to show your killer instinct. Apan samasthanku more request, please go through a book called Quiet by Susan Cain. She says, and the book says very very convincingly, data backed, she says that jette invention heichi quietly heichi nijor cubicle re basiki lokota karichi. Kemti karichi? When he or she thinks inwards deeply into himself or herself. Only then, in the quietness, you find innovation. So thinking is directly connected to innovations. Please don't forget this. And there are many people now who are saying that, like there's this scientist called Robert Gordon-Will. He's saying the time has come, so the time is over for innovations. Ebe se tankar gote achi that he's saying that over the last 20 years we have not actually innovated anything. Jaha innovation thila taku me push karikir we are getting incrementally innovating them. So apan gote app kale mu se app ra utike develop kali. I am not doing anything else other than app. So let us not get into that cookie cutter model, or let us not have that herd mentality. So these are the 3 or 4 thoughts that I have for Orissa. And very soon we are going to complete 100 years in 2036. And in Orissa, as I told you, our strengths are unlimited, but we have to tap our strengths. खाली strength ଅଛି ବୋଲି କହିକିରି ସବୁବେଳେ ଆମେ ସେଇ 3ଟା 4ଟା ଜାଗା ସେଇ କୋଣାର୍କ ପୁରୀ ହେଇକି ଯଦି ଆମେ ସେଇ କଲଚର ଟାକୁ କେବଳ କହି ଚାଲିଥିବା, then nobody can help us. ତାକୁ ନେଇକି, because we have that culture, we can think ahead. So let us think ahead. Only thinking can take us somewhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi, for giving a lot of food for thought actually. And you were correctly focused when you're perfect when you say that the mind needs to be nurtured. Even the nature of a mind itself is to think. And if the mind is not thinking, then there is no use of mind. So thanks a lot, sir, for your excellent deliberations. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Debasish Pattnaik to share his thoughts. Over to Mr. Pattnaik.
You're muted. You're muted.
You can hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Namaskar, and thank you for this opportunity or inviting me for this discussion. And after all that we have heard from Mr. Panigrahi, there is very little left to talk. In fact, I have started thinking. So I really don't know how much I can contribute to this, which is additional. But I will mention about 2 things that thinking is a must. Thinking is a necessity. Thinking should be a compulsion also. But where would it start? It has to start from the family. It has to start from the parents. You see, we always talk about our parents, we always talk about our grandparents, but do we see the proportion of time that my parent was spending with me or my grandparents were spending with me? Are we giving that our child? Which is most important. See, today we are talking about this age group of 30. Odisha has 2 crore population, which is, as Mr. Panigrahi said, which is around the age group of 30. Now, this 30 is maybe is the target. I don't deny that. But I am looking at the target, which is 15. Now, this 30 should also be motivated to take care of the generation that is coming next. There has been a gap. We have been only talking about our past. We have been talking about our culture. We have been talking about our heritage. But what have we done in the past 100 years? Whatever we are talking is good old days. Maybe 200 years, 300 years, 500 years. But what have we contributed in the last 100 years? Now, even if we have contributed something, we have to think how that contribution should continue. We cannot just sit on our laurels that this is what we had. We had done a Cuttack temple nobody could think of. Sorry, that was 700 years or 1200 years back. So what have we achieved in this recent past? Are we continuing the culture? No, we are only talking about the culture. Are we continuing the heritage? No, we are only talking about the heritage. We are quoting the heritage. We are quoting the culture, but not really thinking how to take it forward, which is the area of concern, which has to be generated. This ମାନେ ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ ପିଲାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ମନ ଭିତରେ ତାକୁ ପୁରେଇବା ପାଇଁ ହବ। ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଆମେ was mentioning about the library, youth club and library. Now ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସେଇଟା ନାହିଁ, କି ସେଇଟା ନଥିଲେ ବି ତା ବଦଳରେ କିଛି ଆମେ କରିଛେ କି ତାକୁ ସମ୍ଭାଳିକି ରଖିଛେ କି ଆମେ ରଖିନେ, ବା ଯଦି ବି ରଖିଛେ କିଛିଟା ରଖିଛେ, ଆଉ କିଛି ଆମକୁ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁଟ କରିବାକୁ। ଏଥିରେ କାହାର ଦୋଷ ନାହିଁ ଆଜ୍ଞା, ଏଥିରେ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଦୋଷ ନାହିଁ, ମୋର ଦୋଷ ନାହିଁ, ବାପା ମାଙ୍କର ଦୋଷ ନାହିଁ, କାହାର ଦୋଷ ନାହିଁ। ଆମକୁ ନିଜକୁ ବଦଳେଇବା ପାଇଁ ହବ। we need to change ourselves, we need to think about how to think, how should our children think। ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ ଛୋଟ, I'll give you a small example because I am basically an entrepreneur, so I interact with young minds, I interact with startups. Now it's a very, you feel very excited when you see a person thinking beyond, much beyond the general conception that people have. I met this person, he is an Odia. I might digress, but let me tell about him. There was this gentleman who is still a startup. He is working on a thing. He is working on a machine. Now this machine will give you your tea, more chai, meri chai. Now what is meri chai? Meri chai is ଆପଣଙ୍କର ପସନ୍ଦିଦା ଚା, ଯୋଉ ଚାଟା ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଟେଷ୍ଟ କୁ କେବଳ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଭଲ ଲାଗେ, ସକାଳେ ସେଇ ଚାଟା ପିଇଲେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଭଲ ଲାଗିବ। ତାପରେ
excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sir, can you speak a bit louder only?
Okay. No, let me, I think there is some issue with the headphone. Let me. Can you hear me?
Yes sir, now it is okay.
It's better?
Yes sir, it's fine.
It's better.
Okay. Now coming back to the Mo Chai or Meri Chai, this gentleman is making a machine which has very different options. There is a scale, 1 to 10 scale of milk, 1 to 10 scale of sugar. There is a scale of intensity of tea, the scale for intensity of, duration of the chai being, what do you call it? Manjota,
Brew.
steaming kala bele kete samay seta rahibo, that duration, all those things are available in that machine. Now what you do, you go choose your taste, like you try on 2-3 times. Maybe I'll have little more sugar, I'll have little less milk, or maybe my tea needs to be brewed a little more. So all that taken together, once you have the complete combination and you know that this is my tea, this is the perfect taste for my tea, then you block that. Once you block that, you get a number. Let's say 7011. Now, these machines will be available in every corner, not only in Bhubaneswar or not only in Odisha, everywhere he is trying to sell these machines. So whichever machine, whichever city, whichever town, whichever location you go and look for your tea, their only thing you have to do is 7011. Once you do 7011, you get your tea, same flavor, same taste that you got when you set it up. This is, can you believe that this is somebody doing it, planning it, thinking it, and executing it, sitting here in Odisha? So this is the kind of mind we have. That is what I was trying to tell you, is there is no shortage of mind or thought. Only thing is, need to ignite them. Those minds have to be ignited. ତାଙ୍କୁ ଟିକେ ଉଖରେଇ ଦେବାକୁ ହବ, ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ପ୍ରଚଣ୍ଡ ପ୍ରତିଭା ଅଛି, ତାଙ୍କୁ ଟିକେ ଖାଲି ଉଖରେଇବାକୁ ହବ, ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବା। ଆରେ ଚିନ୍ତା କଲେ ଆମେ ଦୁନିଆ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଦେବା। I'm pretty sure that if this heritage, this culture that we are talking about, that would be nothing in comparison to the achievement that we will make or our next generation will make. People will forget about Konark. When they talk about Odisha, probably they will talk no more Konark. They will talk about this boy who has done this steam machine, or this new innovation, or this new concept, or this new thought. And that is what is required. Coming back to the other thing is, how much time are we spending with our children? Even if we are spending, I remember this cartoon or joke which had come, where the family wants to come to the dining table, and when on the dining table they want to talk, so the best thing to do is to switch off the Wi-Fi. Once you switch off the Wi-Fi, then all the phones are off, then people can interact. So we need to do that. We need to think of an hour or two where we switch off everything. My office problems, my business problems, or my kitchen problems, and spend that time with my child. Make him think. Make him, as I said earlier, ignite his mind. Let's contribute to that. Let's contribute some time for that. And this is not only for your child, for all younger generation. Because a 50-year-old, 60-year-old, or 70-year-old can't contribute that much that a 30-year-old can do or a 20-year-old can do. But they have the time in their hand. They have the time to think and implement that. People like us don't have probably a decade left. But person like somebody who is in 30s or in 20s has a whole life left to achieve. And that is where the thinking is required. Now, the other thing that I wanted to tell you is, Odisha, as it is, in context of Odisha, we have so much. That's what we think. But we don't have much. We don't have much. We have a Konark temple. So what? There are 10 other temples. Meenakshi temple in Tamil Nadu. Or maybe the other temple. Similarly, there are other architectures, there are wildlife, there are everything. Not talking about tourism alone, talking about mines. Even Jharkhand has mines. So how do we become exclusive? We can't be exclusive by saying that we have all the world and then the world will come to us. No. We come back to the same thing,
that we have to think. We are thinking, we have not stopped thinking. We are thinking, but we have to think beyond what we do for ourselves. We have to come out of that. I always say that 3M. You know what is 3M is? Mu, mate, moro. ମୁଁ ଏଇଆ କରିଛି, ମୁଁ ଏଇଆ କରିପାରିବି, ମୁଁ ଏମିତି କରୁଛି, ମୁଁ ଏମିତି ପଢୁଛି, ମୁଁ ଏମିତି ଲୋକ, ମୋ ବାପା ଏଇଆ। ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ମତେ ମତେ ଏଇଟା ଦରକାର, ମତେ ସେଇଟା ଦରକାର, ମତେ ଏଇଟା କରିବାକୁ ଅଛି, ମତେ ଏଇଟା ସାରିବାକୁ ଅଛି। ଆଉ ମୋର ଏଇଟା ମୋର ହବ, ଏଇଟା ମୋର ଥିଲା। ଏଇ ମୁଁ ମତେ ମୋରରୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ବାହାରିକିରି ଆମକୁ ବାହାରିବା ପାଇଁ ହବ ଏବଂ ବାହାରିକିରି ଆମେ ଆମରରେ ଆମକୁ ନିଜକୁ ପୁରେଇବାକୁ ହବ। ତାହେଲେ ଯାଇ ଆମେ ଓଡ଼ିଶାକୁ ଅଲଗା ଭାବରେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ କରିପାରିବା, ଅଲଗା ଭାବରେ ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତ କରିପାରିବା, ଅଲଗା ଭାବରେ ନେଇକିରି କମ୍ପିଟ୍ କରିପାରିବା। ମୁଁ ଭାବୁଛି I think that is all I have to say. But if you have any other thing, Charu, then we can take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I would thanks a lot, Mr. Debasish Pattnaik, for your excellent deliberations. And now I'd like to invite both the speakers for an actually an innovative idea of mutual online tea discussion for half an hour. So over to both the speakers.
No, in fact, thank you, Payal. In fact, I had a thought to share as you're telling, Mr. Pattnaik. I wanted to also raise this thing of huge inequity between the districts. Now, ଆମେ ଏବେ ଯାହା ବି କଥା ହଉଛୁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରକୁ ଆଖିରେ ରଖିକି ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରକୁ ଭାବିକିରି ଯାହା ବି ପ୍ଲାନିଂ ହଉଛି କି ଯାହା ବି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟାଲ ଇଏ ହଉଛି ଆମେ ଭାବିକି ରଖୁଛୁ and in the sense that probably Bhubaneswar carries about 70% of all the migration ଯେତେ ବି district ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି ସମସ୍ତେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରକୁ ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି for obvious reasons. What will happen in Raigada, what will happen in Sundargarh, what will happen in Keonjhar is something we have to think about. Now, a jagare, the brilliant minds are not being nurtured or are not being nurtured at a level which you desire, you and we and everyone would desire, is not happening. So, what are those things that we need to do as a first step? And as a part of civil society, what do you think is the first step that we need to do? For example, do we go to the schools of Raigada and talk to the children, tell them, have a program there, something like that? Do we go to the colleges? Do we activate NCC? And surprisingly, in many of the schools and colleges, there is no NCC these days.
Yes.
But it was like ମୁଁ ତ ପୁରା ଆଶ୍ଚର୍ଯ୍ୟ ହେଇଗଲି।
NCC ନାହିଁ ତ ନାହିଁ। ଏବେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ସେମାନେ ବୋଧେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିଥିଲେ। Now that you have raised that, there was some initiative which is again similar to NCC but state police connected, and this was just one event done in one of the schools in Bhubaneswar, period. After that, it has not been percolated, it has not been taken to other districts. Forget about the other cities. What is unfortunate, Charu, is ଆମେ ସେଇ thought ରହୁଛେ ଯେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରଟା ହଉଛି I am born and brought up in Bhubaneswar. ମୋ ଗାଁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ପାଖରେ, but that doesn't mean that is Odisha. ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ଯୋଉ ପିଲା ମାନେ then we go into a different topic, Charu, basically because ନିଜକୁ ଏତେ ଉତ୍ତେଜିତ ହେଇଯାଉଛେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଭାବୁଛେ ଯେ मोर जो भाईटा सेठी बसिकरी कलाहांडी रे नुआपड़ारे जो लोक जो प्रकार स्टार्टअप करुचंती जो प्रकार बिजनेस करुचंती जो प्रकार चिंताधारा तांकर अच्छी और जो चिंताधारा रे जो माने नूतनत्व अच्छी सेटा एठी नहीं तेणु सेगुड़ा को आमको एकाठी करने हम बा आमको पाखु जावाई हम तमें कहीदे चल जा मुझे कहीदे चल जाटा तो हम समस्त को गोटाए समय एकाठी कर हम आज आई विल गिव ए स्मॉल एग्जांपल आई विल गिव ए स्मॉल एग्जांपल ऑफ boy his name is Amya Kumar Mallik. I want all the participants who are there to tell me who's Amya Kumar Mallik. He has achieved something. He is an Odia from Odisha, living in Odisha, has achieved something which nobody has dreamt of in Odisha, but nobody knows him. I am pretty sure nobody here knows him. Amya Kumar Mallik. You know what? He is holding the for the last 5 years. For the last 5 years, he is holding the 100 meters national record. We talk about lady.
Yes.
That Duti Chand and all. But here is a boy who is holding the national record for the last 5 years. Amya Kumar Mallik in 100 meters. He is fastest sprinter in the country. But nobody knows. We don't appreciate. We don't talk about him. Why? Unless we do that, we can't take this society ahead.
आमर तो सेटा आज्ञा जोटा कहले सेटा तो आमर गोटे एमती हे जाइछि जे आउ जनकर डेवलपमेंटा केबे भी मु सेटा को कहिबिनी कि सेटा को डिस्कस करिबिनी जदि से मो स्टेट रहितिबो आ पडिसा घरटा मते सबले भल लागे मो निज घरटा टिके मते सब बेले टिके कम भल लागे आ सेई जो टेंडेंसी टा हमर अछि सेटा काहे कि अछि आ केबे टू हेला मु जानि परनी बट व्हाट आई एम नाउ थिंकिंग इज से टेंडेंसी टार गोटे एंटीडोट करिया पई जदि आमे जेतिकी हेई परिबो गोटे छोटो सोशल सिविल सोसाइटी ग्रुप से फॉर एग्जांपल आमे एते जेते जण अच्छे एठी बहुत जण आई एम श्योर आर इन्वॉल्वड इन कॉलेजेस तेणु आमे जदि कॉलेज रे गोटे कॉलेज पिलांको संगे गोटे टॉक गोटे इंटरैक्शन मु टॉक टा इथि पई कहूची दैट विल बी द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट गोटे छोटो इंटरैक्शन एवं सेई कॉलेज रो जेते एलुमनाई अछंती किबा सेई एरिया रो जेते जण लोक अछंती तांकू नै कि जदि आमे गोटे छोटो किछि प्रोग्राम करि परिबा कि तांकू गोटे किछि डेवलपमेंट पई से फॉर एग्जांपल तांकर आजिकली तो बही रखुनांती लाइब्रेरी बेसी आजिकली कंप्यूटर रे रखुचंत तो आमे जे तांकू कंप्यूटर देई परिबा किंतु तांकू आईटी एनेबल्ड सर्विसेज किछि देई परिबा सेटा गोटे जिंस व्हिच इज डुएबल हेई परिबो आ सेतरे अति गुडे विशेष लॉजिस्टिक्स किबा विशेष इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बजेट विदाउट बीइंग रिक्वायर्ड वी कैन डू दैट इज वन कारण हमकु टिके जुगोपयोगी होबा पड़िबो आगुरु सिना आगे हमरो कॉलेज रे व्हाई आई स्टैंड फॉर मीटिंग थिला जे आपण कहउतले ह गोटे लीडरशिप मेटल अछि ए लोकर ए लीडरशिप क्वालिटी अछि आपण जानि पारले कि प्रिपेयर्ड हे कि गले आजिकली कैंपस लाइफ तो जो ये हेची कैंपस लाइफ इज बिकम वेरी डिफरेंट तेणु आमको भी सेई पुणी टिके डिजिटल नहले वी कैन नॉट रीच आउट आ सोशल मीडिया को यूज करी गोटे हला कॉलेज रे किबा स्कूल रे जाय कि हमें करबा इन पर्सन आ ड्यूरिंग कोविड आई डोंट नो व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर ऑफ कोविड सेटा तो अबे टाइम लागिवो इन द मीन टाइम जदी I'm appealing to everyone including Payal, Dr. Jena and everybody here all the organizers and Mr. Das Rudra Narayan Das so if we could think of addressing the students unreached students please don't think of Cuttack Puri Bhubaneswar as Odisha unreached students सबुठी आज्ञा बैंडविड्थ अछि सबुठी पिला जेमती Sri Pattnaik कहले सबुठी पिला are of the equal or even more metal ଆଉ IQ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର brilliance ରେ କୌଣସି ସନ୍ଦେହ ହିଁ ନାହିଁ ସନ୍ଦେହ ଆମ intention ରେ ଅଛି ତେଣୁ I'm being slightly caustic about our own role ଆମେ ବରଂ ବହୁତ ଥର ଭାବୁ ଯିବୁ ନା ଯିବୁନି ଏତେ ବାଟ କେମିତି ହବ କଣ ହବ I think COVID has given us that opportunity at least ଆପଣ online webinar ରେ ଆପଣ you can discuss you can talk to the students ସେତିକି at least start ହଉ ଆମେ କେବଳ ଖାଲି ଏଇ କିଛିଟା ଏରିଆ କୁ କନସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରେଟ ନ କରିକି let us go district wise or college wise ସବୁ district ର ଗୋଟେ prominent college ଆगे ଇଏ କରାଯାଉ ତାପରେ ପୁଣି ତାର next prominent ଯେତିକି ହେଇପାରିବ so ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ number 2 ଆପଣ ଯେମିତି କହିଲେ ଶ୍ରୀ ପଟ୍ଟନାୟକ that mining ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଖାଲି mining and mining resources and mining ଉପରେ ଖାଲି discussion ଆଉ ବାକି କଣ ଆଉ କିଏ କିଛି କରିବେନି ବାକିର କଣ ଇକୋନୋମିରେ ଆଉ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ
ଏଇଠି ଟିକେ କହିବି ଚାରୁ ଏ ଯୋଉ ମାଇନିଂ କଥା ଆମେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଭାବୁଛେ ଯେ ଆମର ସବୁଠୁ ବଡ଼ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ହେଲା ମାଇନିଂ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଏବଂ ଆମର ସବୁ ପ୍ରକାର ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରା ସରକାରଙ୍କ ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରା ସାଧାରଣ ଲୋକର ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରା ସବୁଥିରେ ରହୁଛି ଯେ 30% ନା କେତେ ସରି 50% ପପୁଲେସନ ଯୋଉ 2 କୋଟି ଲୋକ କୋଟି ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଚାକିରି ଦବ କିଏ 2 କୋଟି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ କୋଟିଏ ଲୋକ ତ ଚାକିରି ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି କାମ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କୁ କଣ ମାଇନିଂ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି କାମ ଦବ এটা କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟଲି ମେକାନାଇଜ ତାପରେ ଯାହା ହଉଛି ବାହାରକୁ ଯାଉଛି ଯୋଉ 30% ରହିଯାଉଛି ସେ 30% ଯୋଉ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଗୁଡିକ ରହୁଛି ସମସ୍ତ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିର ଯଦି ଆପଣ ଏକାଠି କରିବେ ତାହେଲେ 5 ଲକ୍ଷରୁ 7 ଲକ୍ଷ ଲୋକ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲଏଡ ହେଇଥିବେ କିନ୍ତୁ ବାକି ଯୋଉ ଲୋକ ରହିଗଲେ 95 ଲକ୍ଷ ଲୋକ ରହିଗଲେ ବା 90 ଲକ୍ଷ ଲୋକ ରହିଗଲେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦବ କିଏ ତାଙ୍କୁ ରୋଜଗାର ଦବ କିଏ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଚିନ୍ତା କରାଯାଉ ଯୋଉ ଜାଗାରେ ମାନେ ସର୍ଭିସ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଗୁଡାକରେ ଯୋଉଠି ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଧିକା ଅଛି ସେଇ ସବୁ ଜାଗାରେ ଟିକେ ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟ କରାଯାଉ ସେଠି ପ୍ରାୟୋରିଟି ଦିଆଯାଉ ତା ପ୍ରତି ଚିନ୍ତା କରାଯାଉ ତାହେଲେ ଯାଇ ଆମ ଲୋକ ଏବଂ ସୋସାଇଟି ଏକା ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ବଢିବେ ନହେଲେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ମାଇନିଂ ରୁ ପଇସା ଆସିବ ଆସିବ ଆମେ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଦେବୁ ଲୋକ କୁ କଣ ସେ ଯୋଉ କିଷାନ ଯୋଜନାରେ ଦେଇଦେବୁ ଅମୁକ ଯୋଜନା ଦେଇଦେବୁ ସମୁକ ଯୋଜନା ଦେଇଦେବୁ ଘରେ ବସିଲେ ମାସକୁ ପଇସା ପାଇଲେ ଚାଉଳ ପାଇଲେ ଘରେ ଖାଇଲେ ଶୋଇଲେ ଆପଣ ଜେନେରେସନଟାକୁ ନଷ୍ଟ କରିଦଉଛନ୍ତି ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ ଜେନେରେସନକୁ ୟା ପରିସ୍ଥିତିରେ ନଷ୍ଟ କରିଦଉ ଗୋଟେ ଜାତିକୁ ନଷ୍ଟ କରିଦଉଛନ୍ତି ସେଇଟା ବନ୍ଦ କରାଯାଉ
ସେଇଥିରେ actually I mean very rightly said ସେଇଥିରେ I'll just add on surprisingly you would be of course you would have already thought about it କେଉଁଝର ଏବଂ କୋରାପୁଟରେ below poverty line is more than 69% and those are the epicenters of our mining so mining shadow areas have never internationally globally bhi am pakhare data achi they have never benefited from mining so it is a different issue but here can we so as a action point number 2 can we think of asking the mining companies the corporates involved in mining at least in those areas unfortunately all the indigenous communities are living in areas which are rich in mines so they are the richest and they are the poorest unfortunately so can we ask some of them under their CSR programs or whatever programs can they help set up a few thinking centers so let us call them youth centers let us call them hubs ଏବେ ତ ପିଲାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ୟୁଥ ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଏକାଠି ଯାଇ ଗୋଟେ ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବା ବସିବା ନିଜ ପରସ୍ପର ଭିତରେ କଥା ହେବା ପାଇଁ ଜାଗା ନାହିଁ and now the virtual platform is their only platform so ସେମାନେ WhatsApp ରେ କଥା ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଏବେ so what is the way forward how do we do that so can we talk to some of these and actually tell them request them and coax them to have their contribution and done set up a few youth centers that is something because our topic is thinking and that is the crucial thing now to take or rather surge Odisha ahead setaku amu koriyak padibo third thing I wanted to also talk to you and talk to everyone that आमे तो कथा होचे माइनिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट व्हाट अबाउट द कल्चर हमर सोशल फैब्रिक आमे ओडिया लोको वी आर ऑलवेज वेरी प्राउड दैट आमे आमे बहुत हमर गोटे कल्चर अछि लेगेसी अछि आमे बहुत भलो लोको व्हिच इज अ फैक्ट आमे बहुत भलो लोको आमे सबुटी मिसी जाय पारू हमर फैनेटिक आइडियाज की आइडियोलॉजीज डॉगमास बेसी नाही एवं आमे बहुत पायस लोको आमे टिके गॉड फियरिंग लोको हमर ए जो सॉफ्ट स्किल्स ଆମର ବହୁତ ଅଛି ଏବଂ ସେଟା ଆମ ପାଇଁ ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ ବହୁତ we are very fortunate to have so much of soft skills so many soft skills how do we utilize the soft skills to strengthen our social fabric ଗୋଟେ ପଟେ ଆମର ଏତେ soft skill ଅଛି ଆର ପଟେ ଆମର social fabric ଟା ଧୀରେ 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 it is getting brittle ଧୀରେ 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 weak ହେଇ ଯାଉଛି ଆପଣ କହିଲେ ଯେ ପିଲାଟା କଣ କରିବ ଚାକିରି କିଏ ଦବ 2 କୋଟି ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଚାକିରି କଣ ଦେବେ ସେମାନେ ପୁରା ମାଇଗ୍ରେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇକି ପଳେଇବେ ଆଉ ତାପରେ ପୁଣି ଗୋଟେ କଣ ହେଲେ ପୁଣି ମାଇଗ୍ରେସନ ରିଭର୍ସ ମାଇଗ୍ରେସନ ହେଇଯିବ ନମ୍ବର 1 and number 2 they will always prefer ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆମେ ବାଙ୍ଗାଲୋର ପୁନେ ଆଉ ଗୁଡଗାଁव ରେ we are happier କାରଣ ଆମର ତ ଆମ କଥା କେହି ବୁଝିଲେନି ଆଉ agriculture ରେ we have 26% of land now fallow land so ଆଗକୁ କଣ ହବ in 2030 by 2030 2035 when we are aiming at 1 trillion economy the paradox is ଆମ ଗାଁରେ ଗୋଟେ ଜେନେରେସନ ଆଉ ନଥିବ ସୋ ଯୋଉମାନେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଏଜେଡ ଜେନେରେସନ ଯୋଉମାନେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବି ଚାଷ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ଫାର୍ମ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ତାଙ୍କର ସମ୍ପର୍କ ଅଛି ପ୍ରତିଦିନ ସକାଳୁ ଆଟଲିଷ୍ଟ ଜମି ଦେଖିଦେଇକି ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି ଯଦି ବି ଭାଗ ଚାଷରେ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଦେଖିଦେଇକି ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି ସେଟା ଦେଖିବାକୁ ବି ଆଉ କିଏ ନଥିବ ସୋ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ କଣ ହବ ୟୁ ଆର୍ ନଟ୍ ଓନ୍ଲି ରିଡ୍ୟୁସିଂ ୟୋର ପ୍ରଡକ୍ଟିଭିଟି ବଟ୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ଟା ବି ଫାଲୋ ହେଇଯାଉଛି and ସେଟା ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ଫାଲୋ ହେଲା ବେଳକୁ ଆପଣଙ୍କର କ୍ଲାଇମେଟ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ଅଛି Odisha is the epicenter of climate emergency. It's not a climate change or climate this thing emergency. So सेटा आसुची ingress of लुणी पानी माडी आसुची एवं अदिनो मेघ होउची एवं etc. So सेइतरा हमर पूरा जो लॉस था how do we make good of our youth to come back and engage themselves in rural areas? ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଆଜ୍ଞା କେତେ ପିଲା ଆମ ମୁଁ ଜଣକୁ ପଚାରୁଥିଲି ସେ କହିଲେ ମୋର 3 ପୁଅ ଆଉ ବଡ ପୁଅଟା ଆଜ୍ଞା ବାଙ୍ଗାଲୋରରେ ଅଛି ଆଉ ବହୁତ ବଢିଆ କରୁଛି ଆଉ ଆଇଟି କମ୍ପାନୀରେ ଅଛି ମଝିଆ ପୁଅଟା ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ପଢୁନଥିଲା ଦୁଷ୍ଟ ଥିଲା କିନ୍ତୁ ସିଏ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ଗୋଟେ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କରେ ସେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଇଏ ଅଛି ଆଉ ମୁଁ କହିଲି ଆଉ ତୃତୀୟଟା କିଛି କରେନି ସେ ଗାଁରେ ଚାଷବାସ ବୁଝୁଛି ଆଜ୍ଞା ଚାଷବାସ ବୁଝିବାଟା କଣ କିଛି ନ କରିବା ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ସମାନ are we giving this are we according this this honor to farming agriculture and yet we are talking about agriculture policy eta gote eta the father is saying this the father is
Let
saying
me, the culture difference I'll tell you, bring you here. This is just, sorry for the interruption. This is just one incident. I was in Delhi airport about to board an international flight and I was waiting in the business class lounge. Now, business class, for all people, you know that business class is quite expensive than the economy class tickets. So it has got certain privileges that you get with it, but business class is an expensive proposition for any traveler. For my status also, it is becoming like quite expensive. But there was this boy, he was a Punjabi boy with turban and all. He was sitting next to me. And then we started talking, and he was also in the same flight. He was traveling to Dubai, I was traveling to Dubai. Then we started talking. Later on, I said, "Ab karte kya ho? Are you settled in Dubai?" He said, "No, sir. मैं तो लुधियाना का हूँ." "कहाँ जा रहे हो?" "मैं सर घूमने जा रहा हूँ हॉलीडे पे." मैं बोला, "करते क्या हो लुधियाना में?" "सर खेती करते हैं." He does agriculture in Ludhiana and flying business class, going for a holiday in Dubai, basically because people appreciate the profession. Punjab has just one culture, that is agriculture, but that is the culture which is giving them this kind of return. ଆଉ ଏଠି ମୋ ସାନ ପୁଅଟା କିଛି କରେନି ଯେ ଗାଁରେ ଯାଇ sorry, carry on, Charu.
No, that's the point that I was trying to say. Our dignity of labor and me giving dignity to you and you giving dignity to me. Again, ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୁଁ ଏଟା ପଚାରୁଛି, where we actually of that caliber ଗୋଟେ ଦିନ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଆମର ପରାକ୍ରମୀ ରାଜା ଥିଲେ, ଆମର କଲଚର ଏୟା ଥିଲା, ଆମେ ଏତେ କଲଚର ଅଫ ଇକ୍ୱାନିମିଟି ଆମର ଥିଲା, ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ କଥା ବୁଝୁଥିଲୁ, ଆମେ କଣ ସତରେ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଏମିତି ଥିଲୁ? କାହିଁକି ନା ଏବେ ଯଦି ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ କଥାଟେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କହିବି, ଆପଣ ସେଟାକୁ ଅଧା ତ ଶୁଣିବେନି, ଆଉ ଯାହା ଶୁଣିବେ ଡିସମିସ୍ କରିଦେବେ। ପ୍ରଥମରୁ ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ କଥା କହିଲେ ମୁଁ ପ୍ରଥମରୁ ଜାଣି ଦେଇଥିବି, ଭାବି ଦେଇଥିବି ଯେ ଆପଣ କିଛି ଜାଣିନାହାନ୍ତି। Is this the dignity that we have to give to each other? Is this why we are living? ଆମର ଜୀବନଟା ଏତେ ସଂକୁଚିତ ଯେ ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ କଥାଟେ କହିବେ ମୁଁ ଶୁଣିବିନି ସେଟା, ଆଉ ମୁଁ ସବୁ ଜାଣିଛି। Why are we like this? Was our culture ever like this? From here starts everything again. The thinking process starts from here. When are you giving me time to think? ମୁଁ ତ ଆଜ୍ଞା ସବୁବେଳେ ରହିଲେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କେମିତି କମ ଦେଖେଇବି। ମୋର 24 ଘଣ୍ଟାରୁ 20 ଘଣ୍ଟା ମୋ ଚିନ୍ତା ହେଲା ଯେ ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କେମିତି I'll show you, I'll belittle you, I'll show you in poor light. ମୁଁ ମୋ ନିଜ କଥା କେତେବେଳେ ବୁଝିବି? Where is the social fabric? Where is the culture that we are talking about? So the thing that I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to make here is thinking is closely related to our culture, and our culture is nothing but the family culture, the starting point, the moot point, which Pattnaik also mentioned. Now if I don't take care of my own household with 3 people properly, how do I think about the future? And how do I think about the neighbors? And that is why ଆପଣ ଦେଖିବେ giving ଟା ଆମର or philanthropy in Odisha has not taken off. ଆପଣ philanthropy ଟା ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ଏପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ହେଲାନି। ଆପଣ ଯଦି ଏବେ ମୁଁ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ଫଣ୍ଡ ରେଜିଂ କରିବି ଯେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁକୁ ଆଡପ୍ଟ କରିବୁ, ମାଇଗ୍ରେଣ୍ଟ ଲେବରର୍ସ ପଳେଇ ଆସିଲେ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ ଇଏ କରିବୁ, ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟଅପ୍ ହଉଛି, ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟଅପ୍ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ସିଡ୍ ପଇସା ଦରକାର ଆମକୁ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ ଟଙ୍କା। ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ ଟଙ୍କା ରେଜ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବିଲିଭ୍ ମି 5 ବର୍ଷରେ ବି ଆପଣ କରିପାରିବେନି 5 ଲକ୍ଷ ଟଙ୍କା। Whereas the same people would be splurging money outside. ଆଉ କୋଉ ଜିନିଷରେ ମୁଁ ସେଟା କହୁନି, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେମାନେ ଏଇଥିରେ କରିବେନି। ବିକଜ ଆପଣ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି କଣ ପାଇଁ? ବିକଜ my reading, I might be wrong, because they don't have faith in you. ଆମର ତ faith ଟା ହଉନି ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆମ ଭିତରେ। How do we think of we being together, that solidarity culture ଟାକୁ ଟାର୍ନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ? incubation ତ ଏଇଟା ହିଁ। This is the incubation we want in every mind, not in some engineering college incubation center. ସେଟା ତ ଆଜ୍ଞା ପଇସା ଦେଲେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କଲେଜ ମିଳିବ, ଜାଗା ମିଳିବ। ଏଇ କଲଚରଟା ଆମକୁ ତିଆରି କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। and this is something I wanted to share. And if you have anything on that, Shri Pattnaik, please.
No, that is enough. If I think they wanted to have some questions or interactions with the people present, so we can questions or maybe we can talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot to both the speakers for working on actually an extremely innovative idea. It is perhaps first of its kind of having an online tea discussion. Again, a part of thinking. This will definitely help the students to understand the importance of thinking, working, and applying the method of discussion on virtual platform. Thanks a lot again to both of you. Now the discussion forum is open for participants, and I would like to invite Mr. Shubham Das for initiating the forum.
Thank you, ma'am. One question is from Chinmay Sahu, Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi. You were telling about thinking, the ability of asking also leads towards thinking, but very unfortunate, we don't have promoting the art of questioning. And secondly, sir, you are talking about civil society. the state nature civil society or market linked civil society, both are very painful for society where we live in. The activism part is going to completely mislead in Odisha by 2036. We lost everything. What our ideas about all? Have you any specific vision for envisioning Odisha in 2036 in policy for social change? What about your constructive ideas about individual social duties?
So pointedly, these three questions, uh, Chinmay, I couldn't have agreed more with you. In fact, you have used a word which I wanted to use, but I had not used earlier: activism. And this activism should not be seen or misconstrued or jump the gun. କାରଣ ଆମେ କହୁ କହୁ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ତ ମାଡ଼ି ବସନ୍ତି ନା। So ଏଇ activism ର ଅର୍ଥ negative activism ନୁହେଁ, positive activism, prudent activism. And completely agree with you that by about in 5 years, why about 2036, even in 5 years from now as we are speaking, activism is more or less gone. Why it is gone, I'll just take half a minute to explain, or rather remind you. You would all know about this, but I'll just reiterate why activism is gone and what is activism. Activism is, as I understand, in simple terms, is responding to a situation. Now, activism going down means I'm responding less and less to a situation. What does this mean? That I'm getting more and more less empathetic. So my empathy is going down. My empathy is going down means I am now behaving in my own place like a tourist, like an outsider. So if there is mining, it is okay. If there is forest cutting, it is okay. If there is no water in the city, it is okay. If there are multiple storied buildings are coming up in places where there was water aquifers or water table, water bodies, it's okay. More kon jauchi. If this thing has to be eliminated, this very negative and very disabling thought has to be taken out, then there are 3 or 4 things we need to do now. The first thing is we have to get the youth together to take up issues. Very practical, gotiye ki diti issue nahi ki, we should now start talking, start asking questions. I agree with you, we were never allowed, or we are less allowed now to ask questions. We have never been asking questions. I'm khali nijo nijo bhitre kotha hochu, but now you organize, you take up 1 or 2 or 3 issues, organize your thoughts, meaning organize people, organize your thoughts, have a good platform. But let me also tell you the other side of it. Now, in the name of activism, in the name of youth getting active, don't get into negative things. That is also there. We need business to happen. We need the economy to grow. We need many things to happen. So we just cannot close down everything and say that so there'll be no activism, so everything is fine. No, it cannot be like that. We have to join the mainstream, and the mainstream is that now our water, our coastline has to be used, our resources have to be used, our people have to be used, our land have to be used. But how we can use that prudently is what is our narrative, what we are talking. ସେଇଟାକୁ ଆମକୁ ସେଇ narrative ଟାକୁ build କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଆଉ ସେ narrative ଟା build କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଦିଟା ଜିନିଷ ଦରକାର। faith ଦରକାର ଯେ ଏଇ issue ଟା is a issue which everybody will listen to। ଆପଣ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ମନେ ରଖିଥାନ୍ତୁ, ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ issue ଟା justified and legitimate, everybody will listen to you, nobody will oppose. That is number 1. Number 2, if it is legitimate and put properly, presented properly, everybody will listen to you. ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ এই ସବୁ କଥା ହଉଛେ ନା, let us not think that ସେମାନେ negative ଆମେ positive କି ଆମେ negative ସେମାନେ କେହି, ସେମାନେ ଆମେ କେହି ନୁହନ୍ତି। in a state like ours, everybody is the same. Government ବି ଆମେ, ଲୋକ ବି ଆମେ, ସମସ୍ତେ ଆମେ। ସେଥିପାଇଁ our duty is not to think on those negative lines. Our duty is to constructively create a platform, take 2-3 issues and talk. How do you talk? How do you build a narrative? Use social media, use mainstream orthodox media. Use whatever. There are many sources that we can take offline. That will be a longer discussion. And last thing I want to tell you is there are people who are willing to join the bandwagon. There are people. I assume you are below 35. There are people below 35 raring to go, but we have to reach out to them. And reaching out doesn't mean you have to spend money and go. It is also not expensive these days. A good news is that activism comes without much expense. So you have other media also to be used properly, carefully. If you can do that, then I'm sure we can break much ice which is required to be broken now. Have I answered you?
Thank you, sir. Another one question is for Mr. Debasish Pattnaik. Sir, do you think that the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat can eradicate unemployment from India?
See, Atmanirbhar Bharat is something which will not only eradicate employment. I can't tell you that, basically because we are a huge nation with the kind of population we have. Unemployment and Atmanirbhar Bharat are
You're muted.
sorry. So let me answer it again. Atmanirbhar Bharat is a wonderful concept where creating employment is the prime objective. Not only that, see, I'll give you 2-3 examples which has happened. Atmanirbhar Bharat came very recently during the lockdown when the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about it. Now, what is Atmanirbhar Bharat? It is basically Make in India. Make in India has been the thought of the Prime Minister for all through, and he has come out with this Atmanirbhar Bharat in Hindi. It talks about the same thing. Let us do, or let us work, or let us create facilities which can produce whatever we need. That is what Atmanirbhar Bharat is. Generally, we are connecting it to banning of Chinese goods, but no. Atmanirbhar Bharat applies to all the goods and services that is probably being sourced from other countries, which we need to do here. And of course, if we really do it, then Atmanirbhar Bharat will contribute substantially in reducing the unemployment. But coming back to Atmanirbhar Bharat, I'll give you an example. You know, this everywhere there is this, for the COVID, there is tasting going on. Now, for the tastes, be it the throat swab or be it the nasal swab, what they are doing is there is a plastic stick and there is some kind of a fabric which is fixed on top of that, which is getting inserted to your throat or to your nasal nose, and they are collecting the sample. Now, neither this stick nor the fabric was made in India. Both of them were sourced from outside. So government decided that no, we will try to do both here or try to source it within India. Now, why it was being imported from countries outside India? Because it was easily available, one. Nobody thought about it and thought that probably getting it from abroad or getting it from a particular country will be easier for us. And available, फटाक से ले आते हैं. But they realize that what they have, it is nothing but then the earbuds that we are using. It is a larger thing than, it's a little bigger than the earbuds. So those sticks, now why are we importing it? We can do it. And certain manufacturer was asked that, can you really do it? Because you are doing earbuds. Can you do it? They said, yes, we haven't tried, but let us try and come back to you. And they came back with both the things being sourced in India. Now, when it is being sourced in India, it is creating a demand. When it is demand is created, naturally employment is created. So Atmanirbhar Bharat will substantially reduce the unemployment issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have another question for Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi. From Manasi Chaudhary, there is one question. Our discussion on tea can change this situation, or by doing something can change it? If by doing something, then what is that? And how can we influence our youth to do that? Over to you, Panigrahi, sir.
First question, our discussion on tea can change that? Yes, it will definitely change.
Yes.
Our discussion on tea can change that, because you have to ignite the fire. The spark has to come out of this sharing, because there are many things which we think we know, but it will be better to know from others also, and that adds on to our awareness. I'll not say knowledge, but our awareness about the issue. Number one. Number two, what happens in these tea discussions, IT discussions? You start networking. What is this networking? Now we have 46 people on this conversation, and these 46 people at least will be on the same page after the discussion that we have. So one of the outputs of this discussion would be that you have endorsement of 46 people to do one or two priority things. Second part of the question, yes, action is required. Obviously, this will be followed by action. If you don't discuss, you would not know what to act on. So what is that thing that you want to implement is something that will come out of this discussion. What are those three things? Two or three things are as follows. One, we are talking about youth involvement. Right? Overall, we are talking about youth involvement, youth mobilization. How do we do that? We do that youth mobilization by first involving the youth. How do you involve the youth? We go to the youth. How do we go to the youth? We locate 3-4 areas where youth mobilization should start. We cannot start in 30 districts. So let us decide on 1 or 2 districts, and decide on 1 or 2 places where you want to target the, I'm using the word target because of our work I'm saying, and don't misread anything other than that. So you want to have a congregation of students where, like 46 of us are talking today, they will also speak, they will also share, they'll also think amongst themselves and decide for themselves what to do. We cannot decide what they need to do in Ganjam. In Aska College, we cannot tell them what to do. They'll have to decide their 3 or 4 issues, and then that can happen as a reality. I'll give you an example. Now, Tirupur is this place where, that's the garment capital of India, where all the branded garments, back-end jobs are done in Tirupur. Tirupur is a big place. Tirupur has whole lot of SMEs. Do our college students or youth, let's put it that way, youth in Parlakamdi know about Tirupur? Youth in Baleswar know about Tirupur? Youth in Kontapada know about Tirupur? Do they know? Whose duty is that to let them know? It is our duty. What will we implement? How do we bring along the youths with us by sharing information and knowledge. That is the first level. Second level is hand holding. If they are prepared to do what they want to do, then how do you coach them? So there are many ways of coaching them. One is the skilling that is being done as a public program, and there are other areas also. The other one is to access various platforms of support agencies, VCs, angel investors. If the plan is already there are farmer producer organizations. There are many many not only in agriculture but in other areas. There are many uh, facilities or public schemes where they provide. So NABARD has orchard scheme. So there are host of schemes which are there, host, lots of schemes. But the problem is the schemes are not known by people whom they're meant for. We only are discussing about the schemes, but they don't know. So unless they know certain thing, how do we assume that they need help and what kind of help? So this is a long process and a very serious, intense process. And we need to start off with this discussion which we are doing now. And going forward, there'll be 3 4 steps by which we are going to meet them with information, give them the information, coach them, mentor them, and then lead them to a process of self discovery and self sustaining. You cannot do hand holding the entire life. You're not supposed to do that also. That is where many of our civil society organizations, particularly in Orissa, are a bit in a different plane. Because I often ask them, what are you doing in that village for 40 years? ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆମେ 40 ବର୍ଷ ହେଲା କାମ କରୁଛୁ ସେଠି, ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି? ମୁଁ କହିଲି, so will I take it as an advantage or a disadvantage? Will you take it as a as a plus point or a negative point? ତୁମେ 40 ବର୍ଷ ହେଲା କାମ କରୁଛ, 40 ବର୍ଷରେ ତାଙ୍କର ଇମ୍ପ୍ରୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲାନି, ତୁମେ ଆହୁରି କରିବ 40 ବର୍ଷ. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that if 46 of us decide what to do pinpointed, then it is almost like a surgical strike. You go do that and come back. Then they assume your beneficiaries to be duds. Your beneficiaries or the people that you are going to work with, the youth, they are much, much, much more smart than what we think they are. Thank you.
Sir, the last question for you. What about 3I, infrastructure, ideology, and identity? We lack all in comparison to Odisha and capital-centric approach of this present regime. What your ideas for magnitude, attitude, for future of our youth in Odisha? Particular, we don't want to go IT sector. We invite people to join in Bhubaneswar. But when the time comes, I am pretty sure in my generation, it is nearly impossible. What is your views regarding on this?
So who's asking this question?
This question is asked by Mr. Rudran Das.
And what's his age?
He is 28.
Okay. Now, Mr. Das, why do you have such disillusionment about Odisha? That's the first thing that I want to ask you. Now, when you're talking about infrastructure, ideology, and what was the third I? Sorry?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, ideology, and the third one? Identity. Right.
Identity.
Yes. Now, you think that we are going down in all these 3 elements. I don't agree with you. I think we are doing good in all the 3. I'll explain you why, and I'll justify my statement. First is infrastructure. So you were probably born in the 80s, right?
90s.
Now, 90s, sorry, 90s. So you would have heard many stories in your house that ए रास्ताटा एमती थिला, ए जगह जंगल थिला, घर हो जाइछि. Now, जंगल थिला, घर हो जाइछि is not infrastructure, but road नथिला, road heiछि, port नथिला, port heiछि, airport नथिला, airport heiछि. These are definitely infrastructure. A hospital नथिला, hospital heiछि, definitely infrastructure. College नथिला, college heiछि, definitely infrastructure. Now, if you look at the combination of the 3 I's that you're talking about, what I take from this, from what you just mentioned, is that suppose we have infrastructure, how is our identity getting impacted positively or negatively by the infrastructure? And what is the ideology behind this? That's your question, if I have understood you. Now, we have an airport. Aguru airport nathila. So we have an international airport. Now, international people will come down. Now, if they come to Bhubaneswar and if they go to Koraput, Bhubaneswar, semane juade juade jibe, Taptapani jibe, the driver of that vehicle has to be tuned and trained accordingly to deal with the foreigners. Foreigners as in tourists who are coming in, not necessarily non-Indians, but tourists who are coming in. So over a period of time, I'm just giving a small example. Over a period of time, the services, the room service in the hotel room or the cab service outside on the road and the security in the road will open up to such an extent that whoever is landing in Bhubaneswar is feeling safe once back or on his or her way back to the airport. So for a successful trip of a tourist, you need to have the infrastructure without compromising on our identity. If you think that the driver has to be trained in a proper way to treat them, this is not a dilution of your identity. This is actually adapting yourself to a global environment or to an environment which is the pervading environment, the mainstream. We have to understand this very clearly. And this question is an excellent question. Never think, I mean, that has been my this thing, and I'm suggesting. I don't think that if somebody comes into my house and I have to do certain things to make him or her comfortable, I am compromising on my identity. No, I'm not doing that. I might still be speaking in Odia. I might still be giving him dalma and bhato. I might still be doing sorse macho. But the way I deal with this person, keeping my identity intact, is doable. And the way is doable. The way is practical. So I don't have to, in the name of identity, ଖାଲି ବାହାର ଲୋକ ଆସିଲେ ମୁଁ କଣ ଏମିତି ହବା ଦରକାର, ମୁଁ ଯେମିତି କଥା ହଉଥିଲି ସେମିତି ହେବି ନା, ମୁଁ ଯେମିତି ହଉଥିଲି ସେମିତି ହେବି ନା, ତାହେଲେ ତୁମେ ସେମିତି ରୁହ. Then don't expect Wi-Fi to come to your city. Now don't expect Olympics to come to your city. Now don't expect better water management system to come to your city. So ଯଦି ଆମେ ସେମିତି ରହିବା ତାହେଲେ କଣ ହବ, କିଛି ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ୟୁଥ କହିବେ ଏତେ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଏ ଜାଗାରେ, ଆମେ ତ ଏମିତିରେ ବାଙ୍ଗାଲୋର ଯାଉଥିଲୁ, ତମେ ଅଟକେଇକି ଆମକୁ ରଖିଲ. So this dichotomy has to be properly dealt with and properly understood. Third is the ideology. What is this ideology we're talking about? I'm actually questioning you now. If you ask me, if we had a particular ideology or a few ideologies, then our thinking and our social fabric would have been much, much different than what it is now. So if we had the ideology and if we are not maintaining the ideology now, then we better reflect, think about it, and do accordingly. I have many examples to give you, but there's paucity of time. So I think, answering your question in one sentence finally, I think we are in the right direction, but the right push or the intensity is not there, is lacking, and that is our responsibility to do that. And if the direction is not right also, if the direction is wrong, whom are we complaining to? It is our responsibility. We have to do that. After this discussion, let us form a group of 40 people and let us take up one project in one district of your choice and let us prove it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for responding all the questions from the side of our participants.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Shubham Das, for initiating the discussion forum, and thanks to both the speakers for enlightening us by responding the questions wonderfully. The webinar was actually a really very an eye opener for all of us, and excellent deliberations of both the speakers have made the day of the participants, and I'm damn sure that it will help the students to think and find the right path. Now a program which has started has to come to an end. For that, I would like to invite again Mr. Shubham Das to conclude the session by giving vote of thanks.
Let me come in.
Okay,
Let
okay, okay, okay.
come in
Okay,
for
sir.
just half a minute. Tell you
Yes,
something.
sure, sir.
There were, as Mr. Panigrahi said rightly, there were around 40 odd participants. But both of us have come here not just because we want a forum to talk. We have come here basically, genuinely, we feel what we are talking about. And that is the way we feel about the state of Odisha. And out of this 40, let's say 4 of you, if you could go back, think, and work in similar, as per the deliberation or what we are trying or what we intend or what we visualize for Odisha, then that will be a big achievement. At least 10% of you, if you go and that 4 people can ignite another 4 or can ignite another 16, that would be a big achievement. And that is how this thinking will spread. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I also want to say something. I, along with my group, assure you that I will try my level best to visualize what I had learned today. So now I would like to invite Mr. Shubham Das to conclude the session by giving a vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. I am honored and lucky to have the opportunity to give a vote of thanks for this session. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed guests, Mr. Charudutta Panigrahi and Mr. Debasish Pattnaik, for their valuable presentation on online high-tier discussion on need for thinking in Odisha. Also, I extend my hearty thanks to Dr. Vikram Kesari Jena, Director of CARD, Odisha, for his friendly cooperation to organize this webinar. I would also like to express my profound gratitude to our Principal Professor Pallav Chakrabarti for his cooperation in organizing this event. I would also like to thank Convener Professor Saroj Chandra Pradhan, Coordinator Rudranarayan Das, Co-Coordinator Payal Agrawal, and Baidar Das for their support and guidance to organize this event. I am happy to express my vote of thanks to all the participants, including lecturers, professors, students, civil society members who have made this webinar a grand success by sparing their valuable time with us. Thank you all. The meeting is concluded now.
Thank you.